Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Oh, I guess I have to get on the air now. Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Monday, June 5th, 2017. Live show to kick off our week 20 of The Presidential Apprentice. He's still there. Doesn't seem to be anything that we can think of to do about him that is going to work anytime soon. He's really dragging this out, don't you think? Ah, man, lots to catch up on for the weekend. Of course, another trash fire over the weekend. A total disaster. Of course, we have to catch up with the London terrorist attacks. Man, there's a lot to unpack in that, including, for some reason, the president didn't appear, for some reason, the president didn't appear to understand even what he was commenting, the things that he was saying about the way the attack had been carried out. It was, of course, someone drove a van into a crowd. There were some knife attacks. It was kind of nutty, but the scale, of course, didn't reach the kind of carnage that we get in gun attacks or bomb attacks, for that matter, I guess. And I don't know. Somehow he thought this was really I imagine he must have thought it was some sort of pro-gun argument. I don't know. Honestly, this time I didn't pay very much attention to what he was tweeting over the weekend. Although somebody else has come up with a fantastic idea, and everybody's talking about this Twitter bot that takes his tweets and reformats them as though they were official press releases coming out of the White House press office. And it's really kind of funny and a great and stark reminder of just what the hell it is he's doing here, tweeting this garbage as President of the United States. We're supposed to look to him for some sort of official guidance, and we can't because he's a bumbling idiot. And, as it struck me this morning, he's probably universal. I guess it's not universal because there's somebody who will disagree, but really, for the most part, universally regarded as the dumbest world leader there is. The dumbest head of state in the world is ours. That's crazy. I don't know how we're going to survive this. But over the weekend, he's tweeting. I guess I could look it up what he was actually tweeting. But he's going on and on about, somehow he thought London's events proved him right about things, including, my travel ban, which, oh my God, he's called a travel ban again. And then people pointed out to him, you keep doing the same thing. You keep losing in court because they keep saying, the lawyers say it's not a travel ban, but the president keeps insisting it is a travel ban. And he did it again. He doubled, tripled, quadrupled, quintupled down on it. Now he just says, yes, it's a travel ban. And the people who say it isn't are just trying to be politically correct. We need to have a travel ban. And the stupid courts, which are so political, had better get with the act and give us our rights back. He's nuts. He's completely insane. He has no idea how government is supposed to work. But he's got a pretty good idea of how to overrun it. And reverse, 200 years of balance of powers and separation of powers, etc. And hopefully he doesn't succeed. We'll catch up with all of what he's done, all of what he's said. To the great shame of the country, he, of course, spent Saturday night and Sunday morning excoriating the mayor of London for not doing enough to prevent attacks and not realizing what the problem really is, as opposed to saying, we're with you, whatever it is you need. No decent interval exists for this guy. But I guess, I don't know nobody expected any different, I guess, but if you're late to the game, grab him by the pussy guy isn't gonna play decent interval games. He's just not, right? I don't even wait to start tweeting about terrorist attacks. It's like a magnet. I automatically start gloat tweeting about terrorism. And so he has done here. And I don't even know what he thought he was saying about the gun thing. He said something like, do you notice we're not having a gun debate, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's pointing out, if the guys had guns, it's really considerably more difficult to get your hands on a gun in Britain than it is here. It's not impossible, and you could do it, but it's troublesome, so they don't. And they could have killed 2, 3, 4, 5 times as many people if they'd had that. And, of course, he and his supporters, I saw Lou Dobbs, who I didn't even know was still alive, tweeting yesterday, asking whether the people of London had lost the will to live, which I think is probably maybe a little bit more internal monologue than he meant to let slip out. But who's taking advice on anything? I understood sort of when people were like, well, I don't know, he seems like a benign old doofus, and maybe his investment advice is no worse than anybody else's. It's all guessing anyway. So maybe a while ago you took his investment advice, but the idea that you would take cues on how to live your life and when to fall into despair and relinquish the will to live. I give up. I can't take it anymore because Lou Dobbs. I can't imagine that happening. It's neither here nor there, I guess, with Lou Dobbs. It's just sort of indicative of the stupid kind of weekend. I had a stupid weekend. How was yours? My refrigerator, not working. However, good news, the compressor arrived. Did I tell you all this? They showed up and they couldn't fix it because they needed to wait for a compressor to be... All right. So anyway, the compressor arrived. We'll see if we can get some cancellation appointment, and maybe they can come in and replace the thing. We're surviving, limping along with the... we bought a mini fridge. It's kind of helping out. It's reducing the number of trips up and down the stairs, but it's not making the country any better. I can't seem to get that to work out. Anyway, also good points made over the weekend were, one, that the travel ban, such as it was here, David Paquette currently making this point to me, but I have seen other people make it as well. Other smart people, you're in good company, David, pointing out, the travel ban was supposed to be, this is important, was supposed to be a 90-day vetting review, as David puts it here. But you all remember the rhetoric. We're going to I don't know if he didn't talk about the 90-day thing as much, but that was the mechanics of it. A 90-day pause and things. Just remember the rhetoric was just until we can figure out what the hell's going on with all these people coming in from these terrible countries. You remember, but it was supposed to be so we could figure out what the hell was going on. As he points out, the travel ban was signed 129 days ago, so I don't even know where we are. We're at 20 weeks. What is that? To 740 in 140 days or so. And he signed it early on. So 129 days. The travel ban, had it been left in place and had it been executed as written, would be over. But I assume that he would have just renewed it and kept renewing it over and over and over again. But how are we doing on figuring out what the hell's going on? Has anybody asked him this? What progress have we made in figuring out what the hell's going on? Because the president did find time for 2 rounds of golf this weekend, and literally yelling at the mayor of London for not being vigilant enough. And he did that on Saturday night. And on Saturday night, I knew what was going to happen on Sunday morning. But Saturday night, I tweeted, do you mean when he said we have to be vigilant? Imagine this guy being vigilant. He can barely keep his puffy eyes open. Vigilant. We have to be vigilant. And I asked, on Twitter, do you mean vigilant, or like, well, I can get 18 holes in the morning and still be vigilant? And sure enough, by Sunday morning, he was back at the golf course, having yelled more about what we needed to do and how we needed to be strong and tough. And then he climbed into a golf cart. And, everything that was ever said in criticism of any president who ever golfed, this time a criticism of George W. Bush, the old, we're going to do something about bin Laden. Now watch I'm not even interested in bin Laden. Now watch this drive. And we've progressed only to now watch this drive, which I deny I'm hitting. And anybody who says so, is fake news. P.S. I'm not telling you who I'm playing with. I'm having important meetings. Peyton Manning, by the way, his golfing partner on Sunday. There's a super important round of golf that he had to take the morning after the London terrorist attacks. We'll do anything we can to help you as long as it can be done from a golf cart when I'm riding with Peyton Manning. So, what do you want me to tell you? There's no change in the trajectory. We remain American exceptionalism at large here. We remain leading the pack with the dumbest head of state, and not even in the free world. I would think including much of whatever else we call the rest of the world, the captive world, the subjugated world, and perhaps throughout history. We've had actually mentally incapacitated world leaders in the past, and this guy might be outdoing them. And I don't know. And I haven't even caught up with all the rest of the things he's doing, including the news that, as Armando was retweeting this morning, the news that he himself took the Article 5 language out of his NATO speech, surprising his entire national security apparatus. Surprising, but screwing over his entire national security apparatus. Greg Dworkin is here to share the disaster that is the news, and it really was no worse than any other weekend, I must say.
Right, it wasn't. So welcome to Monday.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Mondays are.
How are you? How are my levels?
They're excellent.
I'm glad your compressor came in.
Yes, thank you. It's sitting in a box. It's very heavy.
Yeah.
And waiting to find out whether they can come sooner than next Monday to put it in. A 2-hour operation that will no doubt take place during the show.
Of course, because that's a good time to do it.
Right.
So the Politico story you were referencing is Trump National Security Team blindsided by NATO's speech. They thought the president would commit to the principle of collective defense. They were wrong.
Yeah, he doesn't show up for duty, this guy. Remember, this is 5 draft deferments guy. The whole country got heel spurs during his speech. We couldn't show up to defend allies.
Right. Well, what it says here, it wasn't until the next day, Thursday, May 25th, when Trump started talking at an opening ceremony for NATO's new Brussels headquarters. That's a mistake. They let him talk. That the president's national security team realized their boss had made a decision with major consequences without consulting or even informing them in advance of the change. They had the right speech. It was clear through McMaster, a source briefed by the National Security Council officials in the immediate aftermath of the NATO meeting. As late as that same morning, it was the right one. This was a fully coordinated other speech everybody else had worked on. It wasn't the Trump one gave. They didn't know it had been removed. It was only upon delivery. The president appears to have deleted it itself, yada, yada, yada. So this is a significant moment of rupture inside the Trump administration, this article says, with the president withholding crucial information from his top national security officials and then embarrassing them by forcing them to go out in public with awkward, unconvincing, after-the-fact claims that the speech really did amount to a commitment they knew it didn't make.
Yep.
Now, the thing, I mean, there's so many things here. First of all, Trump is a complete thunderhead. I mean, we know that. Here's an example. Kyle Griffin tweeted on the Paris Accords. He says, stop what you're doing and read this.
Yes.
Overheard at Trump National, because that's where he goes, right? Instead of actually doing the work of the people, he goes golfing. Trump discussing his decision to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement over lunch after playing a round of golf Sunday. Trump's post-Paris analysis. They can't even get the weather report right. How come they think they can get that right?
Ha, ha, ha. You can't even get casinos right. How can you think? Okay.
Talking about climate change. So this is the James Inhofe, look, it snows, therefore global warming is a crock. You know, and so it's the level of discourse. But getting back to that and thought process, if you want to dignify with that. But getting back to the whole story about the Article 5 piece disappearing from the speech.
Disappearing, yes.
Trump took it out. He disrupted the NATO alliance and the Western alliance in bigger ways than anything that's happened since World War II.
Good thing Russia doesn't care about that.
And the Marshall Plan. And the question is, did he not know what he was doing? Did he relinquish everything to President Bannon because he can't deal with this stuff anymore? Was it really at a peak because Macron had a better handshake than him? I mean, you step back and at every single level of this, it's extremely disturbing. Because on the one hand, European and NATO alliances matter. We've done a pretty good job of keeping the peace since World War II, kind of a big thing. You know, it's it reminds me of the old Tom Lehrer song back in the 60s when he was doing the music for That Was the Week That Was. And he had a song about the multilateral force that was being planned by NATO at the time, the MLF. You know, once all the Germans were warlike and mean, but that couldn't happen again. We taught them a lesson in 1918, and they've hardly bothered us since then. It's like people don't even remember what happened during World War II and how bad things were then and how good things are now, relatively speaking. And you just throw it all out the window because why? Now, again, one reason is because Trump just doesn't get it. Fine. Another reason, a little more sinister, is that Steve Bannon is dictating strategy.
Yeah.
And another even more sinister is that Trump knows and Bannon knows that President Bannon is in big political trouble and therefore needs to do everything possible to rally his base because he knows he's lost everybody else. And that portends more difficulty to come. For example, here's a McClatchy piece. GOP strategists plot anti-media strategy for 2018 elections. Basically, they're going to run against the media because they can't run on their record and they can't run defending Trump. So the strategy is going to be attack the media, just batten down the hatches and be prepared. Because that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
All right. So then we have this series of tweets from Trump this morning.
Okay.
Somebody gave him the phone back. And there's 4 of them, so I'll read them. People, the lawyers in the courts can call it whatever they want, but I am calling it what we need and what it is. And then this is in capital letters, travel ban. Take that, Supreme Court.
Yeah, that'll show you. You can't consider that because it's just a tweet.
Right. The Justice Department should have stayed with the original travel ban, not the watered-down, politically correct version they submitted to Supreme Court.
Right. It's your pen, by the way.
So your Justice Department, you stink.
Not only that, but they shouldn't have gone with the watered-down version that I asked for and signed.
Right. See, when I do things, I just take paragraphs out with no consequences, like I did when I was in Europe. Follow my lead. The Justice Department should ask for an expedited hearing of the watered-down travel ban before the Supreme Court and seek a much tougher version. In any event, we are extreme betting people coming into the U.S. in order to help keep our country safe. The courts are slow and political. Now, there is a bot, the Real Press Secretary bot, which is a Twitter account, and it's hysterical. What they do is they take individual tweets and they paste it into an official White House Office of the Press Secretary written press release.
Right.
So it says, for immediate release, June 5th, 2017, statement by the president, official-looking paper. People, the lawyers in the courts can call it whatever they want, but I'm calling it what we need and what it is, our travel ban. And that just emphasizes the point about what he's doing and, of course, how ridiculous the whole thing looks.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant, by the way, one of the better uses of Twitter in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. It's almost as good as
Twitter.
The Trump draws.
Yes, right. That's true. There have been some really great performances on Twitter. I'll call them. I think it's performance art. And this one, very important and packed with meaning, as I've seen people parsing it over the weekend. It's really great.
Yeah. Anyway, going back to Tom Lear, he had another song called the Folk Song Army, and he was talking about the Spanish Civil War and said, they may have won all the battles, but we had all the good songs.
Well, that's important.
So we have all the funny stuff on Twitter. We win, right?
Yes.
Anyway, this is from Russell Wiley. Nixon approval rating mid-Watergate was 36%, and the net approval was minus 18. Trump approval rating yesterday on Gallup was 36%, and his net approval was minus 22.
That is worse.
That is worse. At this point in time, Obama was plus 33. So net, Trump is 55 points worse. And, of course, my reaction to that is, well, Gallup is at 36, so what you need to do is interview a Trump supporter in Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Again.
Please. Right. That's interesting. I was just sort of noting that. So Obama was his margin, his what would we call it? What the differential is as high as Trump's approval rating.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's amazing. Never mind what the actual approval rating was. There was that much difference. Wow. Okay. Well, something. He's not president anymore.
Well, here's a fact check from AP. I'm just going through some of these tweets this morning before I even get to the pundit roundup because they're just so amazing.
Yes.
AP fact check. Washington. AP. That's the date line.
Okay.
It starts out, this is the first sentence. President Donald Trump can't be counted on to give accurate information to Americans when violent acts are unfolding abroad.
Right. Or also other times. But yes, that's important.
Right. The latest deadly London attacks, like one in the Philippines last week, prompted visceral reactions from Trump instead of statements shaped by the findings of U.S. intelligence and diplomatic apparatus. This is just an astounding thing to read. He got ahead of the facts emerging in Britain's chaos Saturday and got it wrong in the Philippines case, calling the episode there a terrible attack when it was not.
Yes.
And then they look at his weekend tweets and how bad they are. This is labeled an AP fact check. I mean, this is what news organizations really need to do.
Yes. Alongside this should
All
be,
the time.
but I don't know if it is, but maybe later in their write-up, the lack of any comment on terrorist attacks here in the United States.
Well, that was by white supremacists, you know.
Yes,
so
right. Well, that's good stuff.
that doesn't necessarily
The good
count.
kind.
The good kind. So, amazing things. This is, of course, the New York Times had this piece
Of course. I don't know. If I said of course.
about Britain reeling
Yes.
after these attacks, and this is from The Guardian, called Not Reeling. London Bridge attack brings out defiant British humor. I mean, John Oliver kind of said it all yesterday. The British aren't reeling. I mean, there's these pictures from World War II of British ladies sipping tea on top of rubble, reminding people that the IRA bombs at Harrods and even more recent bombs in the tube in the London subway system are well known to Londoners, and they handled it the way New Yorkers handled 9/11. Great cities do this. And so John Oliver said something along the lines of, the UK, the kingdom deals with things as they deal with things, and they're not really. Things that make Brits real are things that are really anathema to the kingdom, like making tea in the microwave, for example. That's the kind of thing that upsets people. But this, they handle just the way that great cities handle things. For example, there's a woman on CNN, somebody quotes, this is from a Guardian article that's talking about the tweets made at the time. A woman on CNN talking about London streets being eerily quiet. It's Sunday. We're not cowering in fear. We're having a lion. I mean, they're just sleeping late.
Oh, okay. A lion. Oh gosh.
It'll always be in England, right?
Yeah, right. Love the terminology. A lion.
London attacks hit a nation still reeling from the shock of the bombing in Manchester, says the New York Times. And of course, lots of pictures and tweets of people dancing. Reeling. I mean, reels. Like
actual reels. So they were reeling. I knew it.
The form of dancing. We dance on unbowed and with customary sang-froid.
Oh, that's French.
Right.
By the way, when Trump is on Twitter, he's having a lie-in too.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he lies all the time.
Yeah, like a die-in, he has a lie-in.
Right. Now, this one's hard to read because you have to understand what they're referring to. But things that leave Britain reeling, people pronouncing it scone when it's really pronounced scone.
Oh.
Or toast that doesn't quite fit in the toaster. These are things that really upset people.
Oh, I thought it was a pronunciation thing. I'm like, what do they say?
Well, it is, but, you can't read it and get the idea of what's going on.
Yeah, no, okay, I got you. What do they say? They say scone?
Right? Or things that leave Britain reeling, knowing you're walking in the wrong direction and having to tut and check your watch and phone before changing course, because you can't just turn around and say, I was wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. Or even better, I mean, and this is
umbrella
England, right?
for no reason.
Not catching somebody's name and then having to spend the next 3 decades avoiding introducing them to anybody.
I think
these are the kinds of things that actually upset people.
That seems, I do that.
Yeah, well, you can relate to this. I mean, it's just a bit overblown about terrorism is this and that and everything else and bad. It's terrible. I mean, these things have huge consequences, but, stop doing the terrorist work for them and trying to pretend everybody's like frightened out of their mind and can't function, when in fact that's not the case.
Well, they need it to be.
Right. And so, while the Times was talking about reeling, the Washington Post was covering the not reeling, aspects of this. So they kind of had a dueling headline, kind of tweaking the Times a little bit, which is fine because the Washington Post really has been much, much better about the entire coverage post-Trump, pre-Trump and inter-Trump. So it continues to be the case that the Times put puff pieces in, and others do as well. One of them, for example, I'll take from the Pundit Roundup today, was one about Ivanka Trump.
Which one, Ivanka Trump?
Well, they were talking about how how Jared and Ivanka are reacting to all of this, just moving on because they didn't get their climate views looked at properly. Then there was a CNN piece about how Ivanka Trump was the most powerful Jewish woman in the country.
Right.
As if Ruth Bader Ginsburg doesn't exist.
Yeah. Oh, I saw lots of nominations for most powerful. What I couldn't get past was like, well, usually powerful people exhibit power.
Yeah, they actually do something. So to that effect, there were some lots of snarky things written in Wonket about that I can't read on the air because it's Wonket, but it was pretty funny. But this one from Brian Beutler, I can read on the air. This is Ivanka Trump's political brand is dead. Either she never cared about issues like climate change or she's a massive failure as a White House advisor. Either way. And actually, there's no reason to think that it's not both.
True.
The truth of the matter is Ivanka Trump exists because she pushes her brand. She's shallow, relatively unthinking. She goes and does the most banal public interviews in order to promote her brand, and her fashion sense isn't even that good. And a lot of the stuff she does are knockoffs of other people's work.
That is true. I think the greatest talent she has is those banal interviews, that she's wise to do them. I don't know if she's calculated that, but it fits. It fits,
but how people treat her here is quite different than, for example, what happened when she went to Germany.
Yes.
Where she was booed and people asked her tough questions.
Yes. Well,
that's what should happen here.
Yes. We're not.
Who is she, and why does she have a White House position? Why does her husband have a White House position?
Yeah,
what qualifications do they have?
Nothing.
And given what they've done, why do they have any security clearance?
I don't know. That I can't answer, except nepotism, obviously, which is the problem with nepotism. But yeah, for some reason we have this terrible problem. Every time it comes up, and every time somebody suggests maybe we ought to treat her the way the rest of the world treats her when she shows up as a politician, we get hand-wringing, both-siderism, etc. from the press that says, gosh, leave her alone. She's just a daughter defending her dad, which, that would be great if she were elsewhere being that daughter.
Or if she were 9 years old.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true. It's accepting a role in the government changes everything. And
if you're an adult, get treated like an adult. So Beutler writes, against that backdrop, which interpretation of Ivanka Trump's performance in public life seems more plausible. That she tried very hard to negotiate with her father on climate change, to use the art of the deal on him, as it were, and failed miserably. Or that she cynically severed any connection between her image and reality in order to maximize profit. He goes on to say there's a practice called greenwashing, whereby polluting companies devote relatively minor resources to environmental causes to reap public relations windfalls. The Trump game applied to public service is even more disingenuous than greenwashing because Ivanka has literally sacrificed nothing, not even a modest sum. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So he goes on to say, look, it may be Ivanka's tragic circumstance that she was born to an ethically vacant parent and that forging a bond with him required making herself in his self-image, but it's our tragic circumstance that the man in question is a moral obscenity, a mental fly speck, a fraud, and president of the United States. In that order, by the way, I would add. In the context of his presidency, her commitment to their relationship requires her to piss down our backs and tell us it's raining.
Oh.
And even if I'm wrong about that, the best way we can say about her brief tenure as a political operative is she's awful at it. The kind of source and reporters would normally take pride in disdaining, except that she's the president's wealthy, glamorous daughter. But every political reporter will at some point find that such, quote, well-placed, end quote, anonymous sources aren't necessarily sources worth listening to. They lie, or they BS, or they think they know more than they do, or they self-deal one news clip at a time. I mean, he could easily be talking about Kellyanne Conway, but in this case he's talking about Ivanka Trump. Or some combination. That's Ivanka. If she weren't her father's daughter, he'd call her a loser. For the press to give her more credit than that is an abdication of the professional responsibility of the public. Thank you, Brian, for saying what I was thinking.
Okay.
I have to tell you, I think that of the entire family, I think that Ivanka's the dangerous one. Because, as you said, she's very good at these banal puff pieces that make her look like she's a lot more than she is. And so people don't have the visceral reaction that they do, let's say, to Eric.
Yeah.
The stupid one. Or Donald Jr. or Dad. And instead they're willing to brush it off and say, well, she's the daughter and she's just trying and this and that. Well, look, she's just like the rest of them. She's a crook and she's taking you for a ride and she happens to be a better con artist than the others.
Yes. I mean, I guess that does make her a little bit more dangerous. I do wonder if if she were president for some reason and there was no Donald Trump, she somehow.
Then she would assign everything to Jared.
Yeah, I guess so. I have no idea really where she would be. I mean, she might be just sort of, my picture of her with, say, climate and the Paris Agreement was that she's the product of her time. She's casually committed to the idea that environmentalism is a decent thing and maybe green stuff is cool and global warming probably real and all that. But I'm not the president, so I'll push my dad a little bit. Come on, Dad, gee whiz, get with it. You're so old fashioned. God, as opposed to really having some pull or making a real argument. But and I don't fault her for that. Up to now, she's just been a regular-ish person who happens to be sitting on a pile of money, trying to make it a bigger pile. And as grating as she can be, I didn't think she was particularly evil. I don't know that she's got an evil agenda. She just got I sort of feel these things to the extent if my dad gets talked into it, great. And if not,
I labeled her Evita a long time ago, and I don't cut her any slack.
Okay.
I think she's in it for the money, and she'd be more than happy to take up the mantle of Trumpism if Trump stumbles. And I think she's dangerous.
Well, I don't mind punishing her as though she were. I'm happy to adopt that position. And if for some reason I'm right about her and we've done her a great disservice, oh well, so what? So I'm not too worried about it. I'm happy to err on your side for that one. I'm not going to get in anybody's way of steamrolling her or throwing her off a cliff.
Well, I'm just telling you, I'm right.
I might even tell you where the cliff is.
You might.
Just to see if you do it.
Let's switch gears. This is Ben Wickler, who now works at Move On, Washington Director, on running healthcare, the campaign.
Okay.
But a former environmental advocate. He has a very interesting tweet storm about reaction to the Paris Accord debacle.
And it's a superstorm because of climate change.
Yeah. I spent years of my life fighting for a global climate deal. Yesterday was crushing. Here's why and how I found perspective. First,
help us out.
Here's how bad it is that Trump is going to rip the United States out of Paris. In 2001, in college, I was lucky to meet John Kenneth Galbraith, who served 4 presidents and shaped 20th century liberalism. He was 93. He said the 2 existential threats to humanity that kept them awake at night were nuclear war and climate change. Nukes and climate, and Trump, of course, spikes up the risk for both.
Yeah.
The Paris Accord wasn't going to solve climate overnight, but its core contribution was vital. It aligned the world. Paris targets are voluntary, but by jumping together, making simultaneous promises, the world's nations made compliance more likely. And crucially, Paris sets the floor. The best hope in the deal was that countries would gather every 5 years to ratchet up ambition. Now, I'll step back a little bit and say, the whole idea of having, for example, fitness goals and publishing them, which people do on Facebook and, their own personal goals and such, is that by committing themselves in the public, you make it more likely you actually meet those goals. That's the point of doing that. There's a psychology behind that, and it sometimes works. Not always, but sometimes, even though it's voluntary. So Paris sets the floor, and the idea was countries get together, and maybe they get even better at it. Pulling out, Ben says, abdicating leadership not only hurts us, green jobs and world standing, but gives excuses to the opposing action elsewhere. All this while more and more signs, like the unraveling of Arctic, suggest climate crisis is accelerating faster than predicted. The likely case climate scenarios are now profoundly disruptive. The worst case scenarios are nightmarish. There's articles now about, for example, sand and tides landing on Hawaii, parking lots in places where you don't expect the water to be because the ocean is rising. Okay. Paris is structured so that, and it's happening now. Paris is structured so that worsening forecasts and greater willpower translate into more stringent targets. Countries don't quit. Meanwhile, more subtly, every tear in the fragile fabric of the aspirationally described international community raises other risks. When the world's nations are bound together by mutual commitments that generate mutual benefits, even if those bindings are easily torn, we create safeguards against the relentless centrifugal forces that pull the world apart and can lead to catastrophic wars. That insight was central to the U.S.-led creation of the post-World War II order, and then we go back to Trump leaving out Article 5 there. The UN, the international financial institutions, even the EU, per Josh TPM, democracy, borders that are peaceful rather than armed and bloody. None of the things are natural states of being. So Trump's attack on Paris isn't strictly about climate change. It's also a middle finger to the idea of an international order. That's where Bannon comes in. None of this is to say the global order is perfect or even acceptably just. It's not. The present global system is riddled with gaping injustices and inequity. It's unsustainable, but many alternatives are far, far worse. And withdrawing from Paris correctly causes every other country to wonder what else about the global system is at risk. The less confidence in a stable global system, the more states look for other ways to defend themselves. The result, nuclear proliferation. And as more countries get nuclear weapons, more countries can fatally misread each other. The risk of nuclear war rises exponentially. So yeah, Trump pulling out of Paris is really seriously bad. But here's the thing. This catastrophe didn't happen yesterday. It happened on November 8, 2016, the day the U.S. ingested poison. Everything that's happened since Trump's election, all that is likely to happen is the poison working its way through the body. We woke up on November 9th in a different world with a darker future than the world in which we lived before. And I have to tell you, when I woke up on November 9th, that's how it felt. It's an act of constant will to revise our expectations down without losing hope, to strive for depressive realism without depression. Consider how George W. Bush's presidency ended: global economic meltdown, a catastrophic war of choice, Katrina. Now consider that W was obviously far better equipped, morally, temperamentally, intellectually, for the presidency than Trump. You know, at least he had his father to lean on, not Ivanka. You have to expect things to deteriorate much worse, much faster under Trump than they did under W. Recession, war, disaster. And if you hold that dark expectation and fight like hell to avert damage and win back power, you can be saddened by tragedy, but not shocked. Trump said over and over in 2016 he'd pull out of Paris. It's horrible, but it became the likeliest outcome the moment he won. So if Trump promised something, don't be shocked when he actually tries to do it. And then he goes and lists 282 of his promises, which are really depressing to read. Many of his promises were clearly nonsense or beyond his control, but the worst actual things that he can do unilaterally, expect them. Yeah. Every ugly promise Trump keeps should merely confirm your expectations. Every one we thwart is a cause for celebration. That's why we're so pleased about the Muslim ban not making it so far, I add. Yes. Because Trump is really serious about it. He thinks of it as a Muslim ban. He can claim that that's not what it is. He can claim it's for extreme vetting. He can claim it's 90 days, as you were pointing out at the beginning of the show. It's all nonsense. He wants to ban Muslims and throw 11 million immigrants out of the country. As far as he's concerned, ICE and the police can do it as roughly as possible because who cares? They're not really people.
Yeah, I guess that wouldn't bother him too much. Only some Muslims. If you can sword dance, you can stay.
Yeah, but, well, you know, he doesn't like the mayor of London. The courts so far have stopped the Muslim ban. The resistance so far has slowed the assault on healthcare. Iran deal is holding. Senseless, brutal deportations are up, but a mass deportation force is not yet rounding up millions. We haven't started a major new war. Structure's resilient so far. Executive branch appears to be obeying court orders. Congress isn't handing Trump vast new powers. Trump's election was a track jump. Vast array of terrible outcomes ahead. They've just begun. Don't be shocked as we slam into them. And then he goes on to add, each tragedy, emergency, or disaster that unfolds under Trump will cause sorrow and pain, but it shouldn't cause surprise or despair. If you decided in the days after Trump was elected to stay and fight, then no consequences of Trump's election should deter you. The very reason so many millions of us rose up after Trump won was we could sense these awful things were coming. So as the future you foresaw comes to pass in bits and pieces, don't give up. Remind yourself you predicted this. Reset your expectations, grit your teeth, go out and raise your voice again. No matter how bad it gets, it could get worse and it could get better, and you will play a role in determining which comes to pass. That's the most important tweet of all of these, which is just about done. Yesterday was awful. Yesterday was the Paris Accords thing. No sense in sugarcoating, but don't succumb to climate fatalism, Trump fatalism, or any kind of fatalism. Get back up and fight, eyes open, find perspective. This is the moment we've been given. Bad things will happen. Our choices are all we control. End of tweet storm. Very good. Absolutely right. There's a lot that's still up to us, and that's why there's a resistance, and that's why there's an indivisible, and that's why these court cases matter, and that's why Trump being at 36 in Gallup And dropping, not rising, based on what he's done with Paris is important. And he sees it. He understands. That's why he's trying to rally his base. That's why President Bannon is actually going to go more Bannon. You know, he's going to be Bannon Unleashed, because he feels like those are the only people who are going to agree with him. Everybody else is just given up. That being the case, it is going to get worse before it gets better. We have to understand that. But this, you know, can be combated. And it's our job to do that, not give up.
But I'm tired.
Tough.
Okay.
You didn't give up on your refrigerator. What did you do? You figured out but how, right? And you got around it. And you waited for your compressor, and things will be okay.
True. Well, all right.
Even if it is heavy.
By the way, I'm looking over the list here. Is this tweet storm in our list?
No, it's going to be.
Okay. Just so long as it is. Everyone will want to read it again and pass it on to their friends, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, let's see. I have a feeling. Let's just go back and check here. That was one of two tweet storms that's actually in the pundit roundup, so you could find it there.
Oh, okay. Easy enough. I can pick it up.
Yeah. And the other one was from Eric Columbus.
Oh, okay.
Who is Eric Columbus? He's an Obama alum, appointee of justice from 2009 to 2014, and Homeland Security from 2014 to 2017.
We may have...
Liz Cheney once called him one of the Al-Qaeda 7.
That I hadn't heard. Okay.
That's pretty good. He's got that in his bio.
So that's nice.
So this is why. There's a thread. There's a New York Times piece we talked about on the show, I think, saying Trump could invoke executive privilege to block Comey hearing. Remember, the Comey hearing is going to be Thursday.
There was, yes, that's right. Lots of discussion of that.
So he worked on executive privilege issues under Obama. He says the danger isn't that Trump could legally block Comey. Rather, the danger is, to pick a word that's in the air, collusion. Bear with me.
Okay.
New York Times says courts have recognized POTUS' constitutional right to keep his discussions a secret in most instances.
Yes.
But this is not most instances.
True also.
I know of no precedent for blocking a former official who wants to testify. To oversimplify a lot, executive privilege is shield protecting executive branch in certain limited situations from compelled disclosure. Think of it as Congress saying, this official must testify or give us documents, and the White House says, no, you can't make him.
Well,
it's basically an immunity from subpoena. Usually, but not always, Congress and the White House reach a compromise without going to court. And it applies to former officials, such as when former White House counsel Harriet Miers was subpoenaed to testify about U.S. attorney firings. The White House invoked executive privilege to block her testimony. Congress sued. They battled in the court for years, but the key point was Miers didn't want to testify. So the White House said you can't make her, and that doesn't work here because Comey wants to testify.
yes.
So it's not the same thing. Comey testifying is no different than writing a book or doing an interview. Ex-officials do it all the time, and they often discuss POTUS conversations. No one thinks POTUS could block them. We still have a First Amendment giving citizens a right to discuss things that happen to them, even if they're former officials, and even if that thing also involved the president. So, of course, they can't discuss classified information in an open setting, and if lawyers generally can't discuss communications with clients, those are generally applicable restrictions that exist regardless of whether POTUS is involved, and neither is relevant. And don't get me started on how, even if valid privilege claim existed, Trump's constant blabbing re-Comey convos may have waived it. That just reminds me of the Twitter thing he said today. It's a travel ban. Yeah, you're damn right I called that big red code.
Well, yeah, all the red things.
You can't handle the truth. You know, It was a Colonel Jessup moment this morning. But back to Eric Columbus. If Trump invoked executive privilege, Comey should smile and testify anyway. Trump can't arrest him for that, and he already fired him. However, Trump and the GOP Congress, which isn't exactly a profile in courage, could still collude to block Comey's testimony. Trump could say he's claiming executive privilege, and a GOP committee chair could use that as a convenient excuse to cancel the hearing. There's a procedural thing.
Yes.
That's up your alley. You can explain that one.
Well, you know, what do you want to explain?
Because if you have the gavel, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
That's my explanation.
Have the hearing. You'll have, but of course, I mean, I guess at that point, there's also not much stopping Comey from just standing outside in the hallway and saying, "Well,
talking to the New York Times.
Listen, I'll say what I was going to say inside."
Yeah, I'll just do it outside not to Congress. I'll just do it to the New York Times and CNN.
Yeah.
If Congress folded to deny Comey a high-profile chance to expose Trump, no court would ever get a chance to rule on the privilege claim. No one has a right to testify before Congress. Comey couldn't go to court just because they used the cockamamie excuse to disinvite him, except for the court of public opinion. So it's important for us to call out this privilege issue as the BS that it is. The New York Times article, with its failure to note Comey's unique circumstances, is not helpful. Another reminder, it's up to us to be vigilant and not expect courts or newspapers to save us. And that's all for now. I thought that was pretty good.
It is pretty good.
It was understandable for me, a non-lawyer.
Right. I thought, that explains things, I think, about where we landed. Now, still available to him, state secrets doctrine.
Yeah.
It would be a lie, but that's okay.
And I think that the collusion with the GOP part, again, we're talking about different committees here. If you're talking about the Senate Intelligence Committee, where Richard Burr, the Republican head of the committee, is relatively cooperative and working fairly well with Mark Warner, that's different than the Republican Intelligence Committee in the House, where the acting head of the Russian investigation, Conaway from Texas, the Republican, is cooperating with the ranking Democrat, Adam Schiff. But Devin Nunes, who is the head of the committee, seems to have gone completely rogue.
Yes.
Where he's doing the White House's bidding by issuing subpoenas without sign-off from any of the other Democratic members, including the, Adam Schiff, the ranking member, and doing it only and solely to try to put who leaked, which is the White House line, into the public's mind to confuse things and obfuscate things. And he's the only one looking at those, whereas the rest of the committee is looking at what actually happened. What happened with Jared Kushner's meeting with the Russians. Still a big story, and still the story I think is going to wind up sinking its presidency, even if it hasn't ripened yet. I think it's going to turn out to be all about money, and Jared and Ivanka were trying to get loans from the Russian banks, and this was a way to do it. And I think that's ultimately what's going to come out. It may be that they, by the way, part of the process was, okay, if we collude to, get ourselves elected, it's actually a better way for us to get rid of sanctions so we can get all that Russian money. So, it's all part and parcel of the same thing. That's the motive, not treason.
Yes. I mean, it may turn out to be that.
It may be treason, but the motive is money.
Yeah, you don't have to try him for treason. I know people that still object. Well, you got to have, it's very technical. Okay, all right, so not treason. We'll get him for something else. Now, it might not even be the motive. That's true.
Right, but RICO, on the other hand, yeah. I mean, criminal enterprise and attempting to extort money from various people. Sure,
yes.
Go for that. So, again, step back and looking at the big picture. Because of the actions of Devin Nunes and the Republican House intelligence people, and others like Trey Gowdy, who clearly are partisan, and on the Senate side, John Cornyn, clearly partisan. You can't have complete faith that these investigations are going to go where they need to go, and that's why the Robert Mueller investigations happening simultaneously are so important and can't be forgotten. They're still going on, and I think ultimately that's really the big story, despite Trump tweets.
Okay.
Although they are a story in itself, because if you're going to spoil your travel ban argument legally, it's kind of stupid. But then again, Trump is kind of stupid.
Yeah. Well, this isn't the first time that he would have driven his lawyers crazy. I mean, that's the story that stuck with me about Trump and his lawyers was the one about how you can't do a deposition with him one-on-one or interview him one-on-one. You got to bring a second lawyer with you just to make sure that there's a witness to back you up when he lies and then denies that he said that.
Amazing.
Later on. Yeah. I mean, you remember that? Do you remember that story?
Yeah, I do. And, it's
real.
The bottom line when you step back and look at the whole big picture here is that Trump is not normal. And every attempt to try to normalize him is going to fail. The press tries to do this desperately still. And, oh my gosh, look at these things he said. Well, what do you expect? He's been saying them for 4 months. This is not necessarily ever going to change. And stop looking for the pivot where he finally became president. It's not happening. The only thing that's going to happen is he's going to become more authoritarian. And what are you going to do about it? That's the question that the press should be asking. That's why it's so nice to see the AP and NBC News also had over the weekend that when Trump was tweeting about the London terror attack,
Yes.
NBC said we will not be retweeting tweets from the president as they are not clearly accurate.
Ah, yeah. Right.
NBC said that on their Twitter feed, just like AP started out this piece saying you can't always believe everything that Trump says. All the news organizations have to do this all the time, constantly. It's the adding context that they're afraid to do, and they have to start doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the message I'm going to leave you with.
Okay.
While you get your refrigerator fixed.
Well, that's not happening, so you have to come back at least, let's
okay.
see.
I'll come back Wednesday and we'll see what's going on. Hopefully you can get an emergency fix put in there.
Yeah, well, if that happens, we'll have a special show.
But I have to say, it's interesting reading, thoughtful pieces like Ben Wickler. It is depressing to see Trump even succeed at anything, even though we know in the larger perspective, the healthcare bill is stalled in the Senate. Those guys really can't agree on anything. They went back for recess, and most of the House people didn't want to have anything to do with their constituents because they were afraid of them. The tax part isn't going anywhere. There's a lot of stuff that they're going to do that isn't going anywhere. I think the House is going to try to repeal Dodd-Frank and probably succeed, but it's not going to go anywhere in the Senate, just like the healthcare part. A reminder that the Republican House is just awful and remains awful. And that's our goal for, 2018 with, John Ossoff and Georgia coming up this month on the 20th. And the last poll I saw has him essentially tied, a 1-point lead. And so, we'll see who turns up and who's enthusiastic and who's not. Another piece that I think is well worth debating is, I've seen lots and lots of think pieces from smug Republican operatives saying, oh, this climate change stuff isn't going to mean anything because people don't really vote on that. It's like gun control. Everybody likes background checks, but, we win. Mm. And I think that they're vastly underrating and underappreciating how much this means to younger voters. Healthcare means everything to older voters, and the climate issues mean everything to younger voters. And, this is a midterm. This may actually get younger voters to come out and vote. So we'll see.
Maybe. Certainly hope so. Mm. Maybe even Ivanka.
Maybe. But I don't know, because I think the Trump family never bothered to register to vote.
They may not have, or not in the right place anyway.
Right. With that, this is Greg Dworkin signing off, speaking to my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the morning. Don't lose hope. We can do this. We got through Nixon. We'll get through this. Take care, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Okay. Thanks very much, Greg. We'll hope there's a Wednesday. That's what I hope. Anyway, we're being asked to rate the call. It was excellent. Perfect, clear, no problems. Armando is asking me, am I not seeing Trump Twitter right now? Let's see. No, I'm not. And I'll say, hey, why not open the door to Armando in case he can update us on what's happening? I mean, do I want to stop and read it? I think rather than play catch up, if you've got time, Armando, come and read it to us. Otherwise, I guess I'll back up and try and catch up on things, but it's always difficult to do sort of live and on the fly. But, I'll be ready in case. In the meantime, let me at least, update the record, even if we don't, get through reading pieces of it, on it, rather, that is reporting on it entirely. We're going to have to do some background catch up, on what's going on in the Persian Gulf. There's some really strange diplomatic issues boiling over among the Persian Gulf states as between Saudi Arabia and Qatar, which is a pronunciation we'll have to double and triple check on at some point real soon. But the UAE, there's this intertwined set of issues, and as I understand it, one of a diplomat, a very well connected diplomat, as I understand it, from the Emirates, has had his email hacked, and that's causing all kinds of problems all over the place, all over the Persian Gulf. But in particular, there is a dispute of some kind, which I really have to get caught up on the backgrounder on, as between Qatar and the Saudis, having to do with, I don't even know what. Honestly, I'm way behind on what's going on there, and I want to catch up on those things. And I've put some pieces in pocket together, but I don't know whether we'd scramble to catch up on the domestic side or go to that side. I have a feeling we've got a few days before that one blows up. But man, that there's a lot of potential for really serious explosion, figurative and maybe literal on that front. Let's see. Justice says that's pronounced like cutter. I like pronouncing it like guitar instead, but cutter, I guess is probably, well, I don't know. I have heard that before, and it just never stuck with me because it just doesn't feel right. But cutter is like insect, repellent, not a country. But then again, Jordan's a basketball player. So, I suppose I gotta accept it. The Middle East, it'll screw you up every time. Let's see. Other things that, need discussion is, let's see. Great piece also shared over the weekend. Adam Serwer, this piece, fantastic. I saw rave reviews about it everywhere. It was taken up, and I think fits well into our own sort of view of, or how we discuss the Civil War and slavery, etc., on the show. The Myth of the Kindly General Lee, also an excellent piece that deserves some discussion, and which I would squeeze into a show if everything worked perfectly here. We also have, let's see, other things that need inclusion. Also, a good catch from many listeners, but let's see, the one that caught my eye in the KITM hashtag column from Twister Cat, pointing me to a piece in Paste magazine, which is a name that drives me bananas, but how the Trump-Russia data machine games Google to fool Americans. All these things, I think it's critical to try and squeeze into these things into today's show. I don't have any indication from Armando whether he's able to catch us up on Donald Trump's Twitter feed right now, but I suspect we ought to take a look. I don't follow him, and I don't even follow the bot that puts everything in his into a press release form. But I guess we must be looking at it must be it, because I see somebody now tweeting one of his tweets with "what a miserable jerk" appended to it. Let's see. So in the last 20 minutes or so, here we are. He's watching Fox and Friends. That's the problem. And so immediately he's tweeting about what's on Fox and Friends. Dems are taking forever to approve my people, including ambassadors. They are nothing but obstructionists, in all caps, want approvals. Complete nonsense, of course, at this point. 99% of the people he thinks he wants approved haven't even been nominated yet, much less that they're being obstructed. They're I promise you we would obstruct them. There's no doubt about that. And so, I guess you could point at that, but we're really talking about a situation where hundreds of vacancies, still stand, and for vacancies for which he hasn't actually nominated anyone. This is like just plain paperwork. He loves signing things. I don't know what's taking so long. So, whatever. Just like for other, for cabinet positions where he kept saying, we want to, do this or do that, or nominate this one or that one. And he would say who he wanted to nominate, and he wouldn't sign the paper and send it. Let's see. 9 minutes ago, of course, I think this is the one that probably caught Armando's eyes. Pathetic excuse by London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who had to think fast on his, quote, no reason to be alarmed statement, which was, of course, taken out of context. I hope you caught up with that news because I can't even stand to deal with it. MSM, mainstream media, is working hard to sell it. In case you did happen to miss it, he was, in fact, saying there's no reason to be alarmed at the increased police presence that you might be seeing in your neighborhood because they are, of course, the good guys. They're out there to protect you. No indication of ongoing attacks. They're going to try and round up the people responsible, et cetera, et cetera. And don't be alarmed if you see additional police in your neighborhood. It's not that they're responding to an attack. It's that they may be conducting the background and police work necessary to find those culpable for the attacks. Donald Trump chose to read only the no reason to be alarmed, which there also wasn't, but decided to make sure that people in another country were alarmed because he's too stupid to figure out what to do in his own country. I don't know. It's an unfortunate situation. Armando is here. Good morning, Armando. What in particular?
You need to check Trump's Twitter feed. Just recently.
I just took a look.
It's embarrassing. It's morally repugnant. He needs to be removed from office like today.
Yeah. Well,
he's lost his mind. He never had much of a mind, but it's gotten worse. I didn't think it could be worse. He's attacking the mayor of London again with more lies.
Yeah.
This is what he's doing.
Yeah. And
it's 10 o'clock, David. His day has started. What is he doing? Tweeting.
That is his day. This is the unstructured time that he demands of his chief of staff. They have playtime for him like kindergartners. And, this is what they allow him to do. Otherwise he revolts, and I don't know what that means. Maybe he rings the Diet Coke button too often. I don't know why they feel like they have to give him time to sit on his ass on a couch and watch TV and tweet about it like, I don't know what. Well, who does this? Retirees. He plays golf and he watches Fox and he talks about it with his friends in chain emails. That's our president.
I mean, it went from the typically lying, stupid Trump about people blocking his ambassador nominees. He hasn't made them.
Right.
But he watched it on Fox and Friends. Fox and Friends said it, so he said it. So he thinks it's true.
He
doesn't even know what's going on in his own government.
Right. Like, was it last Friday in the Rose Garden? And he gave a speech after doing his terrorism thing, or whatever it is he was there to do. I can't even remember. He answering general questions said, my tax bill is doing very well in Congress. It's moving along great. It's doing very well. It's not doing anything, of course. There have been no hearings, no nothing, because there's no bill. Hasn't been written down and submitted as a bill yet. There's still no tax brackets in it. But it's doing very well. It's almost done. We're almost finished. It's like a record. He's completely out of his mind. And we're just like, I don't know. I guess we'll just keep doing this until he dies or 20 years.
Do you think it's about Comey testifying on Thursday? I mean, he's been unhinged, but today is
he probably
banner day.
I'd lay odds he doesn't have any idea Comey's testifying on Thursday. Thursday, nobody's talked to him about Thursday yet. Thursday, I mean, what? And if you ask him, hey, what about Thursday? What's going on Thursday? He'll probably say, I don't know, 48 hours until I go to play golf? What's on Thursday? Oh, Comey is testifying. No, he isn't. I fired that guy. Yeah, but he's testifying. You fired him. He's got plenty of time, so he's going to go testify. He can't. I'm going to block that. No, you can't. I can. You can't. I can.
I'll tweet about it.
Yeah, right.
He's going to live tweet it. That's what's going to happen.
He should live tweet it, but just say, la, 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 we can't hear you the whole time. See if that works.
No, he's going to live tweet it.
Yeah.
He's going to
You're right. I think you're right.
While Comey's testifying.
I believe you're correct. That's a good prediction. Put it down. Tweet it. Here you go. Yeah, so we're all addicted to this goddamn thing.
I love Twitter. I'd spend too much time on it, but I'm not the president of the United States.
This is true. I found that out recently. He's crazy, and there's no one has anything to do with it. By the way, I guess I'll just point out, since we're the procedure show, I saw a casual tweet from the guy we all know as NYC Southpaw.
Okay.
Just pointing out, saying, we really got to do something about this guy. We can't go on this way. What did he say? Congress should be running this guy out of town on a rail. First order of business today. So just like you, same reaction.
It's insane.
And I don't know how you can't have that reaction, but yeah, just reminding everybody procedurally, impeachment resolutions always highly privileged. Any member of Congress, any day, any time, goes to the floor and says, ladies and gentlemen, it's too goddamn much. We have to impeach this idiot of a president.
I would do
it now.
If I was a House member,
people go crazy.
Vote me down, but I would do that right now.
And there's a big fit. And I mean, if you can temper your words, well, and you should, because otherwise it'll break down over a contest on whether or not to take down your words as being insulting. But if you say, we've had enough, this president is a clear and present danger, he must be impeached, he is incompetent to the job.
He's not mentally fit to be president.
Right. If you do that, now they'll fight you, depending on who you are. If you're rank and file, right? They'll fight with you. First, somebody will try to take your words down. You say, I've said nothing improper here. This is all true, and it's a privileged piece of business. Then with a regular rank and file person, they'll say, all right, but this is not to be considered now. You've stated a question of privilege. We have 24 hours to come back to you to schedule a 1-hour debate on your resolution, and they can push it off a couple of days. If Nancy Pelosi goes to the floor, if the majority or minority leader go to the floor and say it's equally privileged, except it's immediately debatable for an hour, and I mean then they'll have a vote to table the resolution and throw it away and then go on with their business. But honestly, at this point, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15, the whole Democratic caucus go one by one and make this point and say, I'm sorry, I don't know what else to do. There's a clear and present danger to the existence of the United States and possibly the world, given that he's nuclear capable, to let this guy remain in office.
Now, and if Comey testifies the way we think he's going to testify, that Trump obstructed justice, yes, Nancy Pelosi should do it the next day.
Yes. Oh, Nancy Pelosi should be busy tomorrow when she gets back making a privileged resolution for the expulsion of Devin Nunes from the House of Representatives.
A lot of privilege motions coming up.
Yeah. And they shouldn't forget that they've got this as a weapon. And okay, look, at the basest level, yeah, you can obstruct a lot of the House's agenda with these things if you want to, if you care to. If you don't actually also happen to believe that the President of the United States is certifiably insane and ought to be removed immediately from office. And P.S., when we finally get around to the collusion angle, you should be removing his vice president as well. But we'll get to that
can leave
later.
that for another day. Let's get rid of Trump first.
Well,
can we wait to 2018? I've always been the person who's tried to be the adult, stupid me, in the room and say, look, it's one way to do it. That's win the House in 2018. That's how we stop them. But, people said, can we survive? And I'd say, well, I hope so. I don't think we can. I don't even, listen, there's this thing in Qatar that I don't know anything about.
Me neither, and I've got some articles.
Is that a big deal? I don't know.
Can't tell you. I don't know.
There's nobody in the government that knows. Does anybody know anything that's running our country?
There are probably some people still around who haven't been purged from the State Department who know, but who are at such a low level that they can't step up and say, I can help out with this, even if they want to. And they might not want to.
What if it is a big deal?
I don't know. What if it is? Then we write think pieces about this is the first major foreign policy crisis we've been telling you for this has been a disaster without a foreign policy crisis. Imagine what's going to happen when there is one. Well, okay, here is one. What do you say, Mr. Savvy Pundit? We should look.
This is beyond anything.
Pundits aren't supposed to tell us what to do, so I guess it's not their problem. But
can you imagine you're an ally? What do you think
supposed to tell us what to
in
do.
Europe about this?
Nothing. I don't know.
You just say, forget the United States. They're not there. They're nothing.
Right. You just say, come talk to the European Council about this.
It's over. It's over. We are no longer anything in the world that you can count on.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
The big hint that I picked up behind what's going on in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and as between all of their neighbors, is that there's a lot of suspicion, and it's hard not to have the suspicion given proximity and time, that Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia was either explicitly or implicitly taken as a green light to do whatever the hell it is that is happening here. And they seem to be having some disagreement about a lot of things, including the unified front among Gulf states in opposition to Iranian influence in the Persian Gulf, about the waging of the war in Yemen, about any number of things. And Qatar has apparently stood apart to a certain extent from its Gulf neighbors, and in a way that, honestly, I think if it's evaluated honestly, the U.S. was probably more in tune with, at least under the Obama administration, than with the traditional positions taken by the royal family in Saudi Arabia. But, I'm not certain whether, I mean, maybe we ought to just review that, I guess, but it's sort of a separate question to what you called about. But if you'd like to know, and,
No, I mean, it could be the most important thing that's happening today, except
we have
know. A mentally unfit person as president of the United States, so it's hard for me to get past that in the news.
It's the sort of thing that you would at this stage under a normal administration be able to turn to the administration, and the State Department would give you a relatively level-headed view of it. It might be skewed in whatever way.
Sure, but at least there'd be some basic facts.
Yeah. Instead, I mean, we have to get it from the newspaper. And there is a piece in the Monkey Cage blog over at Washington Post. Kristen Coates Ulrichsen has written up, and it seems like she's something of a subject area expert. And, as a result, I think it seems like the piece glosses over some important background that we just are supposed to know already and don't, because we're not subject area experts. So it's a little bit strange, but the bits and pieces that I was able to pick up from it are the Gulf states work together as members of the Gulf Cooperation Council. That's their umbrella organization where they get together and discuss such things. If you ask Trump, he would say, yeah, OPEC. No, not OPEC. The Gulf Cooperation Council is different. Anyway, here's the issue. And by the way, undercurrent in all of this is what do we do? How do we deal with this in the that's real news, no, that's fake news environment? This makes things tough. Another of the terrible consequences of having that stupid fake debate going on. Let me just sort of jump in the middle here and say, all right, well, I guess I'll start at the top. Tensions have resurfaced in a sustained media onslaught that has again cast Qatar as a threat to stability and security in the Persian Gulf. Okay, that sounds bad, right? When we hear that, we usually when you hear that, Americans think, oh, that means they're sponsoring terrorism or something like that, right? Because what other context we have in the Persian Gulf? At the heart of the latest argument among members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, are incendiary comments attributed to Qatar's Emir Tamim at a military graduation ceremony on May 23rd. So what happened? What did he say? A report published in the Qatar News Agency website later that day alleged that the Emir stated that Qatar had a tense relationship with President Trump's administration, described Hamas as, quote, the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, and called Iran a big power in the stabilization of the region. Qatar TV later reported the Emir's alleged speech on its evening news program before the government communications office claimed belatedly on May 24th that the Qatar News Agency website had been hacked and false statements were posted on it. So we don't even know whether these statements that are causing this tension are real. How does you as an American find out whether the Qatar News Agency was hacked?
Oh my God.
Regardless of whether they were made or fabricated, the people present at the military graduation insist the Emir made no speech whatsoever.
Oh my God.
What are we going to do with this? If you told me that the Emir of Qatar made this speech, unquestioningly, it's printed in an English language newspaper that I recognize. The Emir of Qatar made these remarks. How odd. Well, he's put himself at odds with his Gulf neighbors, but I guess that's his prerogative. He's an Emir. Wait a minute. I was actually at the military graduation. You were? Wow. How did you get there? Okay, what happened? Nothing. The Emir wasn't there. He didn't make a speech. Oh, crap. What? Yeah. He didn't speak.
There's going to be a war started over fake news.
Yeah. And so I guess it's a good thing to turn to this in case. So when the fire rains from the sky, you'll say, "Oh, I knew that. I heard it first on Kagro in the morning." And you'll say, "Damn it, I'm going to miss tomorrow's podcast." Tamim's remarks caused immediate uproar in regional media, much of it based in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, United Arab Emirates. Remember this: both countries blocked Al Jazeera. And everyone knows Al Jazeera, and now only now does it register with me. Al Jazeera, and this is how they describe it, and other Qatar-based military media outlets in the aftermath of the allegations. Oh yes, Al Jazeera is from Qatar. I forget that. And new articles have been published in daily in the week since. Almost without exception, each article has taken the emir's speech as fact and proceeded on that basis to accuse Qatar of being the weak link in the threat to regional stability from Iran and terrorism, and demand that Qatar choose sides between the GCC and Iran. Wow. The ferocity and sheer scale of the Qatar bashing articles suggest that an orchestrated campaign is underway to discredit Doha, the capital, regionally, but also, crucially, in the eyes of the Trump administration. In other words, Fox and Friends is going to tell him, Qatar are terrorists. You thought they were okay? They have a nice airline with the big wide seats and everything. It's very luxurious. Doha is beautiful. I could build condos there. Maybe one of those fake islands shaped like a palm tree, something like that. But somebody is busy making sure that Fox and Friends ends up telling Donald Trump that Qatar are sponsors of terrorism and pro-Iranian. This comes 3 years after a 9-month standoff between Qatar and 3 of its neighbors, Saudi Arabia, or which we call Saudish, the UAE, and Bahrain. After this incident rocked the 6-member GCC. In the time since, Tamim, the emir of Qatar, and Abu Dhabi's influential crown prince, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, exchanged frequent visits, and Qatar's decision to deploy 1,000 soldiers to Yemen. And this is where I'm like, you got to tell me more, subject area expert. Why did Qatar send 1,000 soldiers to Yemen, and on whose behalf? And who are they fighting for? I don't know, and that I think is assumed to be understood. Qatar's decision to deploy, and here's a link on the decision. I might have to just read that as my own backgrounder. So they sent them to Yemen in September of 2015. That seemed to indicate that the 2014 upheaval was a thing of the past. So now I'm like, so did they send them to fight for the Saudis in Yemen? I don't know. What then has changed, and why has a seemingly dormant dispute suddenly flared up again in such a visceral manner? The next section of the article is called the Trump factor, and I guess it's supposed to be the hint. A convergence of factors appears to have shifted the geopolitical landscape in the Persian Gulf. The Trump administration signaled that it intends to follow a set of regional policies that are aligned far closer to those of Abu Dhabi and Riyadh than Doha. Again, than the Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, more so than Qatar. Both Mohammed bin Zayed and Saudi Arabia's deputy crown prince Mohammed bin Salman were high-profile visitors to Washington in the run-up to the Riyadh summit with Arab and Islamic leaders. Further, the policy and experience of many within Trump's inner circle has presented an opportunity for both the Saudis and Emiratis to shape the administration's thinking on critical regional issues such as Iran and Islamism, both of which were evident during the Riyadh visit. Oh, by the way, in the wake of the London attacks, Republicans and conservatives are back to demanding that we call it radical Islamic terror, even though for a week when he was in Saudi Arabia, it was okay not to, just to keep you up to date on that. Whereas the Obama administration sought to enhance U.S. engagement with the GCC as a bloc, and here, good parallel with the European Union and NATO and basically all international umbrella organizations. Just like with those, the Obama administration had sought to enhance U.S. engagement with the Gulf Cooperation Council as a bloc. Trump has focused instead on Saudi Arabia, where his friends are, and they give him gold, and the UAE, where they let him build towers, as the twin pillars of its regional approach. Strong bonds reportedly have formed between Trump's advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, as well as Yusuf al-Otaiba, the influential UAE ambassador in Washington. Now, Yusuf al-Otaiba is the powerful and heavily connected diplomat who I mentioned before, whose email was recently hacked. Key principles within the Trump administration, such as Defense Secretary Jim Mattis and CIA Director Mike Pompeo, hold views on Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood that are virtually indistinguishable from those in Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, which is dangerous because the views of those in Riyadh and Abu Dhabi are, we denounce them and Iran is terrible and the Muslim Brotherhood is a huge danger, but my cousin pays for them. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are emerging as the two spearheads around which U.S. regional policies are realigning, including a set of hawkish defense and security interests. The joint raid conducted by the U.S. and UAE special forces in Yemen, remember that, in January, where the SEAL was killed, may well be only the first of numerous joint initiatives across regional conflict zones in the months and years ahead. So we'll have more of those people at State of the Union addresses for him to applaud. Congratulations on your husband getting killed. Whatever signals may or may not have been passed in private, there has been a noticeable increase in domestic and regional assertiveness in the immediate aftermath of Trump's Saudi visit. In Bahrain, the deadliest raid by security forces on opposition forces since 2011 resulted in 5 deaths just 2 days after Trump assured the Bahraini king of a new era in bilateral relations. The Saudi Emirati media campaign against Qatar happened to coincide with a high-profile event in Washington where analysts and former senior U.S. officials cast doubt on Qatar's reliability as a regional security partner. Ruling circles in Persian Gulf capitals may feel emboldened by the new political climate to see how far they can go in pursuit of hawkish domestic and regional policies and what, if any, pushback they encounter. Before continuing on and finishing with this piece, let me just also remind everybody that the Saudis spent big entertaining Trump. They gave him a big gold necklace. The Bahrainis moved their National Day celebration from the Four Seasons to the Trump International Hotel. The UAE similarly has spent big on Trump projects. Qatar has not. And maybe that's all it is. The bag from Qatar is light. And that's why we're going to have an international crisis with these guys. Finishing up here. There are differences between this latest disagreement and the past, not least in the way the current standoff is being played out in the media rather than behind the closed doors of leaders' meetings, and no act equivalent to the withdrawal of the ambassadors. I'm not even certain what that's referring to. In fact, few officials have publicly joined the feeding frenzy and have been careful not to single out Qatar by name in calling for brotherly unity against the Iranian menace. The carefully controlled public spaces in GCC states mean it is inconceivable that such attacks on a fellow member state could have been made without, at the very least, a degree of official sanction behind the scenes. By allowing the media campaign to run into a second week with no apparent let-up, policymakers in Riyadh and Abu Dhabi may be hoping to pressure the leadership in Doha into making concessions, or watching to see whether figures within the Trump administration take the bait without having to resort to official threats or sanctions. Where this leaves the GCC as an entity in the age of Trump is anyone's guess. So, I mean, I think she's thinking big things. Christian, although I don't know, Christian, maybe it's spelled with a K. So, that's either indicating to me that we're talking about Christian Coates Ulrichsen, or Ulrichsen, Christian Ulrichsen with a K. That might be a foreign-born, foreign-named man, for all I know. I really have no idea now that I'm looking at that. So, if I've got it wrong, I apologize. There are many ways of checking. I just don't feel like I can drop this ball at the moment and go and take a look. By the way, as far as Qatar's deployment of 1,000 troops to fight in Yemen, I literally don't even know what side they're fighting on. I have to go and take a look. Al Jazeera is where I have to go to figure this out. Qatar Armed Forces soldiers backed by 200 armored vehicles and 30 Apache helicopters. Where do you buy those, by the way? Head to Yemen's Ma'arib province. Around 1,000 soldiers from Qatar's armed forces have been deployed to Yemen as part of the Arab coalition's fight against Houthi, no idea, rebels. Okay, so on the side of the Saudis, I guess, right? So that was supposed to be, I mean, what are they after from Qatar? More money, more soldiers, more commitment to fighting in Yemen on their behalf? I guess. I mean, 1,000 isn't enough? I got no idea. The news comes as coalition forces pounded the rebel-held Yemeni capital Sana'a with airstrikes on Sunday. This is back in whenever. Following the killing of 60 Gulf soldiers in a rebel missile attack on Friday. The UAE had pledged to avenge its heaviest ever military loss after 45 of its soldiers were killed in that strike. Let's see. Others, okay, I mean, they would all appear to be on the same page. What's the beef? I have no idea. Except that, like I'm hinting here, it may be the bag is light. There's not enough you've come up short in your payments to the boss. What's the story? So, hope we don't have a war over that. That would suck. There's another piece that I have in pocket that relates to this, from The Guardian, and this was also much discussed. This goes back a ways. What is BAE? I'm not even certain what we're looking at here. But it says, secret papers reveal threats from Saudi prince. Have you seen this one?
No, I had not.
This is, and I guess this goes back in time somewhat back to some previous attacks in London, not the ones that are current, but this is some inflammatory background. Saudi Arabia's rulers threatened at some point, I guess, to make it easier for terrorists to attack London unless corruption investigations into their arms deals were halted, according to court documents revealed yesterday. How do you like that? Previously, secret files describe how investigators were told they faced, quote, another 7/7. I guess that's the so July 7th attack back in a couple of years ago in London, and I'm not even certain which ones and come to mind. Obviously, if you were British, you would know right away what that was. And threatened, again, the loss of British lives on British streets if they pressed on with their inquiries, and the Saudis carried out their threat to cut off intelligence. Prince Bandar, the head of the Saudi National Security Council and son of the Crown Prince, was alleged in court to be the man behind the threats to hold back information about suicide bombers and terrorists. He faces accusations that he himself took more than £1 billion in secret payments from the arms company BAE. British something or other. BAE. I don't know. British Armed. And I don't know. What is
British
BAE?
Arabs Emirates?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I don't know. Let's see. Well, let's figure that out. We deserve to know exactly who we're talking about here.
There's so little I know.
BAE. Now that's of course going to give me like all kinds of slang at this point. No, I don't need Urban Dictionary on Bay, but BAE International. There we are. Are you going to tell me what it stands for? No. Well. British Aerospace, maybe. It's an aerospace firm originally, and I guess maybe they sell the fighter jets that they were interested in. Ugh, what a confusing world. Okay, so anyway, I guess did they end up in court? Is that what it is? Their arms sales would be jeopardized. Meanwhile, Jared Kushner just comes back, and guess what I did? I personally sold $110 billion in weapons to these same guys who we're now finding out later on, if you don't come through and deliver or maybe renegotiate your terms for them. I mean, once they find out, for instance, that the Koreans only paid $1 billion for their missile system and they're paying $110 billion, they'll come back. And won't it be fun when the threat is, well, if you don't knock down the price, we'll allow suicide bombers to attack the United States. Wait till that gets out. So here we are. This is just to put this in chronological context, I guess. So it's we're talking about Prince Bandar, was accused in yesterday's High Court hearings of flying to London in December of 2006 and uttering threats which made the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, force an end to the Serious Fraud Office investigation into bribery allegations involving Bandar and his family. Wow, that all sounds very familiar. The threats halted the fraud inquiry, but triggered an international outcry, with allegations that Britain had broken international anti-bribery treaties. Lord Justice Moses, that's sort of unfortunate in all of this. I mean, yeah, they always call them Lord Justices, that's true. But the fact that his name is Moses
It's just Moses the lawgiver here.
Hearing the civil case with Mr. Justice Sullivan, said the government appeared to have rolled over after the threats. He said one possible view was that it was just as if a gun had been held to the head of the government. Now, mind you, I'm sure not many Tony Blair fans here, right? But I think probably, I would guess near 100% of the people we ask on this show, if you were weighing Tony Blair versus Donald Trump, you'd say, oh, well, Tony Blair any day. I mean, I don't trust him as far as I can throw him, but I mean, that's an international player. He knows what he's doing. He may do the wrong thing, but he'd know he was doing it, whereas Donald Trump might not. If you can get Tony Blair to say, all right, the best way out of this situation is to keep pouring weapons into the Middle East and to stop investigating the bribery and fraud and corruption of the Saudi royal family. And that's not an unexpected outcome. I expect that we've done this many times in the past, both in the United States and among all of our allies, most likely. But you got to put Tony Blair between a really big rock and a very hard place to get him to do that. Whereas, does anybody think it wouldn't be easier to get Trump to, wouldn't they just say, I'll give you another scoop of ice cream and a gold necklace, and okay, deal. See, I did it. I made a great deal for America. Again. This guy is totally unequipped to handle this. However, I guess I should point out, is anybody equipped to handle this? Because Tony Blair couldn't handle it. And though, again, he's not the greatest advocate, I wouldn't assign him to the task, but I don't know anybody else that just says, no, you know what? I'm sorry. I can't help you. To hell with it. You all have to be indicted for bribery and fraud. To which, of course, the Saudis would say, fine, I'm not going to fly into your country. Come and get me, I guess. Good luck getting me, because you just sold me a ground-to-air missile defense system. But, that's your problem. So, I don't know. I don't know that anybody else is going to come out any better with this. But I guess all it tells me is the Saudis are everybody we have been. They're exactly what we said they were. And there's no question why they get along so well with the Trumps, because the Trumps are that same thing, but without the history.
Yeah.
So there you have it. I don't know. So that's, uncomfortable to have to deal with, to say the least. And, in the middle of all this, so right, they were, I think, properly asking, this may be Donald Trump's first foreign policy crisis. How will he deal with it? I think the answer, though, might be kind of simple. It's bad for Qatar, and it may undoubtedly, anything that happens in the Middle East like this is going to unleash something we're going to come to regret. But then again, since it was a no-win situation, maybe it's no worse than any other government might have produced. But it sounds like, I guess
they can definitely make it worse. I don't know how, but
they're going to buy out Qatar, I guess.
These idiots will come up with.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if I'm Saudish Arabian at this point, and Emirati, I suppose the play is like, why not at this point? Maybe the Trump administration poses a unique opportunity to say, would it be okay with the United States and therefore the larger global order, because they still think we lead that, I guess, if we bought out our neighbors? Like, really, take a look at the Arabian Peninsula. Seriously, is there any reason for Qatar or Yemen or, any other entities? Why aren't they just pieces, like you look at it, I'm sure they look at the map and they say, what is this Rhode Island? What are you talking about? That should, why don't we just merge it? Delaware, just merge that into, Maryland. It's just a chunk taken out of Maryland. Give it to them. Or whatever. But these guys, why not take, and that's crazy. You wouldn't have these are states. They don't just simply absorb one another. Gulf War I, invasion of Kuwait, whatever. The lost provinces. Remember that whole argument?
Yes. Yeah, the 22nd and 23rd provinces.
Yeah. So, why, if you're Saudi Arabia and you, and by the way, you want to run government like a business? There it is. Saudi Arabia. It's being run like the kind of business that Donald Trump ran, a family business. You all thought we meant publicly traded. No. We meant family business where you're accountable to no one and no one's entitled to find out anything about it. So run government like a business, Saudi Arabia.
We had no idea how his business is running either. Listen,
neither do we have any idea how Saudi Arabia
gives me a segue to stick something in you might have talked about.
Okay.
Deutsche Bank refused to cooperate with the House request for information.
Well, they're Deutsche. Why should they? Yeah, I mean...
They're Deutsche. Why should they? Well, they actually operate in the United States. They can be subpoenaed.
Dang it.
And they have no Fifth Amendment privilege.
Well, who subpoenaed them?
Well, it was a request. There's no subpoena yet.
So
you know how the House Intelligence Committee asked for information.
Right. Well, that's the first step.
They said, they wrote a yada yada letter and gave them nothing.
Okay. So now the question is whether they would subpoena them, and I guess they're trying to figure out whether it's enforceable as against, Deutsche Bank. Well, what do they want to know?
Well, they wanted to know about whether there was any Russian guarantees to Deutsche Bank loans.
Oh.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
I hadn't thought about that. It's a great way to hide who you owe the money to.
That's true. Right. And I mean, Deutsche Bank, as I understood it, was the last of the legitimate world banks that would lend to Trump. And then they stopped. But yeah, maybe the last round or two, that would be interesting to know if the last round or two of loans was Russian guaranteed. Well, I don't know whether they would say so.
When Deutsche Bank loaned the money, it was only because the Russians backed it.
Yeah, it may be. Of course, it might also have been that
it's a theory.
Yes, or Trump may have demonstrated to them that he had access to money that might well have been Russian, and that would be a great way for Deutsche Bank to be able to answer the question. No, there were no Russian loan guarantees, but a full answer would be, but we did make the loans because he said he had access to considerably more.
I assume the document request is properly crafted that it would capture all of that.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, there must be a lawyer or two that knows what they're doing there.
But they have to know what they're doing, and then that thing that they're doing has to be trying to find out the truth.
No, well, that's true too. Listen, if it's an easy way to pretend if you know how to ask.
I asked them whether there was Russian backing, and they said no. Gee whiz, Phil! I'm thinking of the old the Rodney Dangerfield movie, Back to School. I asked the man if it was his work, and he said yes. What do you want me to do? Torture him? Anyway, I mean, I asked, was there Russian backing? Yeah, but did you really ask, what about the question, why did you make those loans? Everybody in the world, every other bank knew that he was a terrible, terrible, terrible risk. Why did you make the loans? What convinced you that it was, and, of course they can just answer, because no one else would do it. We thought, high risk, high reward. We think we'll get a lot of money out of it. And we didn't. We're stupid, as it turns out, but that's just a business error. Nothing you can do about that. But,
let me point out, just to bring it to just about Trump's competence here, and it's true. Matt Iglesias tweets it out. Trump fired all the ambassadors. Remember, he sent everybody home right away, and he fired all the U.S. attorneys. He hasn't replaced most of the U.S. attorneys.
Right.
And of course, he fired the FBI director. And he didn't have replacements for them. And he complained today about people not getting approved.
Right. Yes. But he did play golf. So, he's doing things.
It's 5 months now? Yeah, we're in the 5th month of his presidency.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't found the ambassadors he wants? He didn't know who he wanted in mind. I mean, and
nobody's brought him any money.
Iglesias says, well, listen, just keep whoever's in there, at least the ambassadors. Until you know which donor you want to give the seat to.
And by the way, it fell to the acting ambassador to the United Kingdom to tweet actual adult comments about the London attacks.
Thank God. We're not a complete embarrassment for the United States.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. Mm-hmm. Look who his advisors are. Bannon, Sessions, Miller. I mean, I guess I've been having blinders on. Of course this was going to happen. Of course this is going to be what happens. I don't know why. Maybe I bought the stupid Jared and Ivanka nonsense.
I doubt that was the case, but well, we've been pampered with competent governments.
Exactly. You don't notice it. It's like the umpires.
Here, I'll point this out. Arliss Bunny is making a couple of comments that are relevant to the Gulf situation, and I think are also relevant to this particular point. She points out, for instance, among other things, the story about the Saudis and Qatar are headed by different tribes. And that's why they are different countries. That largely, I would imagine that's the real background and history. And so they've always been in tension, and maybe the general Western style world order that they've agreed to impose on themselves and pretend that they're nation states as we understand them has helped smooth out some of that, where there used to be just like, well, let's raid the neighboring tribe because we can, like, cause, I don't know, they got goats and we should go get them. And, that they've gotten away from that because there's plenty of oil money, everything goes, and when there's money flowing, tensions are eased, etc., right? But it might be just that it comes down to that. But, I mean, you, me, Arliss Bunny, who even knew this, I mean, relatively intelligent people probably know in the back of their heads that this is the case. But remember that by comparison, George W. Bush's administration was considerably more competent, obviously, than this Trump administration. And they fought wars all over this region and only at the end of them acknowledged things like, did you know there was two kinds of Islamists? I found out that today. There's Sunni and Shiite. And that's two different kinds, and they don't even really like each other so much. And we still confuse that sort of thing, like by saying things like, sure, Al-Qaeda and the Iranians are cooperating in Iraq. No, they're not. They couldn't possibly be for all of these reasons, blah, blah, blah. But down below the surface of all of that, as between royal families of Sunni Arabian Peninsula ruling families, there are tensions because actual tribes and actual tribalism, and that, that's called the nuance, and that's the sort of thing that people literally at desks dedicated to such things at the State Department knew and were available to tell presidents and national security advisors so that they could come to understand, because nobody's an issue expert on everything. Take Zbigniew Brzezinski while he's still alive. Make him the Secretary of State. He's still going to go and check with the desks. What have you been reading that I haven't had time for? I'm at 50,000 feet. What's happening as between the tribes here? I can tell you. Yes, good, great, do that so I can operate with some understanding. They're all fired. They're all gone, or they're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed to look the Secretary of State in the eye if he passes in the hallway. To like raise an eyebrow, like, come over here and ask me, something. I'll tell you. Make it look like your idea. Come on, ask me. No, can't. No, can't even do that. So even if they manage to survive the first, second, third round of purges, they have to sit on their hands and wait for Donald Trump to figure out the nuance of the relationship between Arab Peninsula tribesmen. That's not going to work. I mean, unless they're all, you know who wins? The tribe who has the most condos in his tower. That's the tribe I like. No, what about the histories? What about the injustices as between this tribe and that? What? What's the difference? They're all ragheads. The money's, whoever's got the most money is the one who wins with me. So no point in trying to, finesse any of that.
No,
we're doomed. And the worst part is they'll kill us with stuff we sold them. The Jared brokered for lower prices. So, good luck, everybody.
Yes, good luck in this world.
There's more happening in the world. I don't know if any of you would have any interest in in these other things. I highly recommend to you Adam Serwer's piece on the myth of the kindly General Lee. You should absolutely keep that in mind. We'll read it and discuss it if you don't get a chance to look at it. And also, I mean, you really want to scare the crap out of yourself. You read this piece from Paste Magazine on how the Trump-Russia data machine games Google to fool Americans. I guess the quick and dirty summary on that one. This has lots of detail that explains things beautifully. But the long and short of this particular piece, and I think it maybe we'll sneak it in because it dovetails a little bit with what we just learned about the issues of fake news in the Persian Gulf, leaving us unable to even figure out whether or not the Emir of Qatar actually said something or not. We don't know. Is Donald Trump making statements? Is he speaking? Does he speak for the government? We just found out from the AP, as Greg pointed out to us, that the AP now says, sorry, the President of the United States is no longer a credible source when it comes to issues like this. We don't know whether, how do you find out what Qatar is thinking if not quotes from the Emir? Now that we've got fake quotes, I don't know. So this Google story, longish story short here, is this guy began looking at fake news, the fake news issues here in the United States. Roger Solenberger is the name of the writer here. And he does things like, where do we got here? First of all, he talks about Trump's Twitter bot army. And he points out, though, you may have heard this news in the last couple of days. No, he didn't, as some people have claimed, get 5 million new Twitter followers in 3 days. But he did, in fact, gain 3 million Twitter followers in May, and nearly half of his followers, almost out of all of them, not just the ones he got in May, a full 49% of his followers aren't real people. There are 15 million bots following Trump.
Actually, that story's kind of astounding in a sense. Not that they're bots. But, Barack Obama has 85 million followers on Twitter. He doesn't even tweet. He still has 85 million followers. It is kind of surprising that the now President of the United States can only muster 15 million actual followers.
Yes.
To me it is, anyway.
Yeah, well, in its own right. That would be unpacked at a different level, but very true. He goes on, though, to say, let's cram in as much of this as possible here. The Washington Post, he says, just ran a pretty cowardly piece, as he puts it, about Trump's bot following. They titled it, something fishy is going on with Trump's Twitter account, but didn't say why this fishiness mattered in the first place. And this is a good thing to know. Who really cares if his followers are fake? And so what? Blah, blah, blah. We're used to that from Trump. And here's why the Washington Post wouldn't, for some reason, say this, or where they wouldn't go anyway. Those bots aren't just, to boost his numbers. He says, not just digital cod pieces, as he puts it. They're attack vectors for weaponized information. What does that mean? When we think about the Russian attacks during the election, most of us probably think of the DNC hacks, Podesta, WikiLeaks, etc. If you hate Hillary Clinton, I'm sure that at some point in the last 9 months you've said something like, well, who cares how that information got out there? It's the truth. He says, I won't argue. Instead, I'd like to point out that's not the whole story. According not just to me and fake news reports, but to the declassified U.S. intelligence report on Russian subversion in the election. And I have a note here. Armando has actually lost his connection here, but listening in, we'll rejoin him some other day this week, I'm sure. So, continuing with this story, the attacks included weaponized false information, what fake news really is, that is, stuff that's made up entirely, and creating real-seeming sites to host this fake news. We all know this much, I think, about fake news. But moving on, this brings us to Google today. A couple of weeks ago, I saw an insane person in my Facebook feed screaming about how Obama had leaked classified information about the bin Laden raid that got people killed. He says, what the F about that? I'd never heard anything about this. And the raid was 6 years ago. And this guy was, of course, a total right-wing crackpot, which is the trifecta for guaranteeing at least 15 full minutes of bat-ass conspiracy theory misinfotainment. So I duly Googled, quote, Obama classified information, bin Laden, unquote. And if you do that right now, here's what you get. And he includes his screen cap. And It's, he's searched in Google about 846,000 results he gets, and they are Obama administration, Panetta blurted out classified intel on bin Laden, flashback, Obama CIA director leaked top secret bin Laden, something, 5 times the Obama administration leaked classified information, et cetera, et cetera. But what you begin to notice, of course, is what are the sources of all these things. This is the top page of hits on Obama classified information, bin Laden. Breitbart, The Federalist, DailyWire.com, Newsmax, Newsbusters.org, Trump Train News, and then finally, the last hit on the first page, PolitiFact.com. Thank God. But the article continues, what? Obama's mouth killed people. Media is libturd hypocrites. That's supposed to be the reaction of the average person. Let's ignore the criminal level of stupidity for a minute and look instead at the dates on those articles. This is even more important. You thought it was just the sources? I thought it was just the sources. It's not. May 16th and 17th of this year. This year. The bin Laden raid, again, was 6 years ago. What's happening here? Why are all these different, as it turns out, white nationalist news sites suddenly writing about this all together at the same time? Why did they start doing it on May 16th? Why did those articles even exist? Well, on May 15th, you might remember, the Washington Post broke this little gem. President Trump shared top secret intel with the Russian foreign minister and Russian ambassador. You remember that? That actually happened, not like the Emir's speech. In the Oval Office, in front of Russian state media. The right-wing BS factory lurched to life. These outlets launched a broad "what about Obama" attack, a coordinated attack on Obama and the left. That story about Obama's dangerous classified leak suddenly broke throughout the right-wing media sphere. Some of these articles are even cut and paste jobs. There's no effort here, just content. Tons of content. That's what Google loves. Tons of content, made quickly, made together, all spewing the same lies, but search engine optimized. If you notice the bottom of the results page, of course, there's the single redeeming link to PolitiFact. That's at the bottom, though. But Alexa, the service that ranks all websites around the world based on their traffic, ranks PolitiFact much higher, around the 10,000th most trafficked site in the world, than the hit just above it, Trump Train News, which is about the 128,000th most trafficked site in the world. Shouldn't such a gap work in PolitiFact's favor? Well, it doesn't. And it doesn't work in your favor either. Now, let's see exactly what's up here. Together, he says, we're going to Google the phrase Trump no evidence collusion. That is the fake news factoid of the week. That there's no evidence of collusion between Trump or the campaign and Russia, right? And because Google searches change over time. He says, I'll drop screenshots of my results here. What will emerge is a picture of an invisible hand writing a specific argument over and over and over. And that hand belongs to who? You know who. Well, you do know who because you've been listening to the show. That hand belongs to Robert Mercer, Trump's data man, who gamed Google and fake news during the campaign and whose return to the scene is heralded by Trump's war room and the new bot boom. If you want, you can read more about this guy. There's some links, and of course, you already know about him because you've been listening to the show. Before we begin, he says, though, we need to establish the fact that this statement is a lie. There's no evidence of collusion. The reason I'm using this specific example is because this highly nuanced claim is the perfect loophole to exploit for misinformation, to shade the truth as lie and get away with it clean. The truth, no one in the intelligence community and no one on any of the congressional committees looking into this thing, be they Democrat or Republican, none of them have said categorically, flat out, there is no evidence of collusion. Period. People investigating the case will only go so far as to say they haven't seen any evidence or that there hasn't been any evidence made available to them yet. But they don't ever say there flat out isn't any evidence of collusion, ever. Read this, and there's some links here if you don't believe me. Now back to Google. What he saw when he Googled Trump no evidence collusion on the afternoon of May 29th. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, in this case is, I think, 5 pages of, yes, it's true, there's no evidence of collusion, all under white nationalist outlets, etc. Who's our results from here? Let's, Daily Caller, Real Clear Politics, townhall.com, newsbusters.org, breitbart.com, freebeacon.com. You forget how many of them there are, right? theblaze.com, Free Beacon again, Free Beacon, National Review, which was never supposed to be in that category, but wandered into it anyway, InfoWars, and then finally, on page 2, we hit Reuters. White House says no evidence Trump team collusion. Then Washington Post, Boston Globe, and the Epoch Times, back to the other side there. There, buried under InfoWars and National Review and The Blaze, not one, not two, but 3 pieces from the Free Beacon, we finally find good old Reuters. And lo, the good old Washington Post. And what about the failing New York Times? Truly failing. They are on page 5. The New York Times makes page 5 of a Google search. Ahead of it, LifeZet, that's Laura Ingram's thing. Talking Points memo, at least that's one of ours. The Blaze, The Daily Caller, something called NTK Network, Constitution.com, GOP.com, Gateway Pundit, Newsbusters, Town Hall, and of course Breitbart and InfoWars. And by May 31st, when he was finishing up writing it, it had gotten even worse. Washington Post had moved down to page 4 from page 2. What's going on here? The presence of all these bots, the presence of the Facebook pages, of these bogus sites, of these real-ish sites. These really exist. I mean, the Daily Caller is a real place. People work there, get paid. It's garbage, but whatever. The whole point is all of this money and all of this technology is going into reproducing the same story over and over again, updating it 10 times a day so that it looks like a new post. It's all designed to game Google such that if you at any point were stuck on the question of did the Emir of Qatar even speak, or was there really no evidence of collusion, or did Obama really spill the beans about bin Laden raid, and you went to Google it to find out because really, honestly, you've got a brain in your head. You got a question like this? Google it. Go get some facts. You won't be able to find any damn facts. And by the way, add the repeal rollback of net neutrality to this. You're effing doomed. You will never be able to figure out what the hell's going on, even if you've got a brain in your head. And that's the whole effing idea, if you'll indulge me one more time. Robert Mercer's idea, Steve Bannon's idea, Donald Trump's idea, to the extent that he has an idea in his head about what the idea might even be. Extraordinarily difficult way to end the show, of course. You're probably hungry for more. Why don't you come back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even Friday for more on this? It was absolutely imperative, I think, that we throw this one out there. Lots that we didn't get to. And, of course, thank God we have the after show here on Netroots Radio. And if you're missing out on Netroots Radio, listening to terrestrial radio or anywhere else that you might be listening, do stay tuned. Do reboot your computer if you have to. Just turn things on, turn things over again, turn the player off, start it up again so you can hear the next show coming up, the after show. Right after this, what have they got to catch up on? What did we miss that they're going to catch up on? Let me give it to you here. American Airlines called the cops to arrest a double amputee for drunkenness after he asked for a glass of water. The drunkard's favorite, of course. A white Flint, Michigan official who says some of his best friends are black, and that's good, blames the effing N-words for the city's lead-poisoned water system. I'm sure they did it themselves. They're always poisoning their own water. And then, what else have we got here? A big pharma CEO caught giving executives 2 middle fingers after they complained about EpiPen price gouging. Should have stabbed them in the fingers with the EpiPens you had at great cost to yourself. For the last half, Trump is outraged that his own team has made his Muslim ban seem less racist. And Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins makes official box office history. I didn't get to see it.
From
Did you?
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Thank you for listening. I did try to convince everybody to go see Wonder Woman this weekend, but I think big crowds kept us away. Big crowds, of course, made lots and lots of money for the director, I hope, but also made lots and lots of money for Steve Mnuchin, executive producer of that one. How's he going to explain that one at the next cabinet meeting? We'll talk to you again tomorrow.